All right, y'all. Things have gotten crazy, right? There have been claims that I am a radical leftist. Most recently, their source was I am supported and funded by radical left groups. When, if you look at my campaign finance report, literally the only donations I have are from Greeley residents, my extended family, and close friends. Close friends and family are the only ones out of town, and I don't have any donation greater than $400 per person because I made that decision when Greeley decided to use home rule to raise that to 2,500, and that didn't sit right with me. But if we want to talk about dark money, we want to talk about out of town influence, let's take a moment and look at that. So we're going to start with the campaign finance report for my opponent, Dale Hall. So as we look at this, you're going to notice that the total monetary contributions is $33,000. So as we look further into this, there's a couple things we're going to see. One, we've got $500 coming from Morrison. We have 2,500. It's from Greeley, but Journey Homes. We know Dale Hall very much wants Catalyst and Cascadia to go through. And I wonder who might benefit from Cascadia? Probably Journey Homes. You'll also see that there's 2,500 from Denver. This is a real estate asset management firm. As we continue to go down, we also have, oh, hey, Basler Homes, another developer that wants to put homes in a new development, $1,000. Now, if we keep looking, I also feel like it's worth noting here that I believe every single voter, it would appear, got the very first mailer that was by Dale Hall's committee. There are about 70,000 registered voters in Greeley, which means on the low end of what those mailers cost, it's at least $30,000. But that's not claimed anywhere, despite the mailer saying it was paid for by this committee. Also, he just noted that he has a $27,000 loan from himself. Now, it's possible he's taking his own money, but something interesting is we have the limits on what a donor can do. There's no limits on what you can loan your own campaign. So I would be really curious to know if this 27,000 did in fact come from him, or if it might have been a gift from someone else that he listed as himself. Okay, let's keep exploring here. So now we have three different committees that have been registered with the city that have come in to put out stuff against me and about some of the other women who are running. One of them is Community Forward. So Community Forward, something that's important here to note is the date at which this committee was registered, 10/16. You are not allowed as a committee to spend any money until you're registered. Remember, this was something that they claimed was a really big problem with many hands. Well, when I come into Community Forward, something we're going to notice, first off, is there's a beginning balance. $7,700 almost. So I checked Tracers, which is the Secretary of State's tracking mechanism. I had to go all the way back to 2023 to find the most recent donation to figure out where the money had come from, as this has been the balance for the last 2 years. Well, the most recent donation was $20,000 from CLCS Action 527, another committee. This committee also, when I looked on Transparency USA, its donors are often listed as itself. This is all a way to keep from having to name who the donors are. Dark money. Again, you'll remember that being thrown out around Greeley Deserves Better and the fact that that couldn't track and they tried to villainize them. But they're doing the same thing, right? Then as we come in here, we're going to notice they have had one very sizable donation, which is $10,000. I don't think that it's any coincidence that the person who donated this $10,000 is the executive at Phelps Toyton, which is a general contractor and investment company with interest in real estate. Again, remember, one of the biggest things that Dale Hall has wanted is to move Catalyst and Cascadia through. Okay, then as we come down and we check the money that's been spent so far, notice the date. I told you to pay attention to that. 10/15. So this money was spent before. And you want to start talking about big money. We have $4,900. We have $6,400, another $350, $482. And this has just been spent in the last week to support Dale Hall, to go to support Johnny Olson, right? Sizable amounts of money. But they're going to claim that I have out of town money. So let's look at the next committee. This one is Good for Greeley. Good for Greeley listed 48. So when you spend over $1,000 as a committee, you have to give 48 hours notice if it's within 30 days of the election. So I had already put this one up, right? We had the 4 different expenditures for $7,300. These were to get on the radio and to send mailers out about me, claiming I'm a socialist, which, oh, by the way, I'm still not, and that I want to make Greeley bolder, which I've never wanted. But they did note some other sizable expenditures. So we have the 4 that we knew about. And then there's another one for almost 5,500 for Ryan Roth. Then there's 5,000 for Johnny Olson. Then there's 3,500 for Brian Rudy. Another 6,000 for Ryan Roth. And another 2,900 for Johnny Olson. This is totaling just of their big expenditures, $52,000. These most recent ones aren't going to show on their report because it's the day that the report was due. So the reporting period ended before that. But let's break down and see what their most recent one does say. So in their most recent one, they claim the beginning balance is $0. I'm wondering, how is it you cannot have money, but you can spend tens of thousands of dollars? Last time I checked, businesses don't allow you to not have money and still get things in return. Also, they say that the total expenditures this period is $19,800, but when we do the math on the 48-hour notice ones that we'd already done, that's $29,000. So I'm a little confused there. So no donations. They have zero money that they're accounting for, telling us where it came from. Also, as I said, these don't add up to the 48 hours notice, but you will see that there is tons of money. Then I come down here, I start seeing GC Harmony Inc. in a lot of places. So I did some digging. Other than finding that it's incorporated, in other words, something got formed, I can find zero information about this company. It appears to be a shell company, meaning who knows where that money is actually going and who's actually on the other side of it. GC Harmony is a residential address that has no other information. Please feel free, take a look. We have tons of expenditures going to this, claiming that they are doing mailers. You would think mailers and digital advertising would be going to a company that does that, right? Okay, let's keep going. We've got one more committee that's specific to running against myself and some of the other women running. So we have Weld Strong. Weld Strong has a claim of 61,737 as a beginning balance. So I had to check into that again to figure out where that balance came from because it carried over. So what I found, if my computer will let me go to the window that I want, why is it doing this? There we go. Sorry about that. I looked at the donors that are going to this committee. You will notice tons of other entities. There are political action committees such as Colorado Dawn or Fund for Colorado's Energy Future or Ready Colorado Action Fund. These are all other political action committees. Well, why is one committee donating to another committee? Well, you guessed it. It's dark money. They can hide the donors that way. Though it is interesting, we can notice that 2 of the big donors to this, Robert Toynton, well, we just saw his, right, $60,000, and Tom Norton, our former mayor, $10,000. Also, do you see the amount on Colorado Dawn? They have donated $400,000 from one committee to another committee. Okay, so coming back here, you want to talk about dark money. This is dark money. You want to talk about out-of-town money. This is out-of-town money. Now, on Weld Strong, they have not filed a single 48-hour notice of independent expenditures in excess of $1,000. But we'll see no donations, but $9,752 to support Ryan Roth. There was nothing noted about that. $5,400 supporting Brian Rudy. $9,700 Ryan Roth. $5,400 Brian Rudy. And then another $800. This is the only one that wouldn't have needed to be claimed ahead of time, but Brian Rudy. I also want to note, and we'll see this in the next one as well, none of this money from any of these committees is going to Greeley. So they're not even using our businesses while they're trying to pretend that they're what's best for Greeley and that we're doing all of these things, which we're not. Now, this last one isn't necessarily directly against us, but it's very tied in to Catalyst and Cascadia. We all know Greeley Forward, right? Tom Donkel, registered agent, the ones that have been responsible for moving billboards, for mailers, for deleting comments on their own page and trolling other people's pages. So Greeley Forward, like the other committee, has been functioning on a negative balance. They've claimed not enough donations until this one to cover that. So where is that money coming from? That again would be dark money. We have no idea where it's coming from. Now, as I look through theirs, things get even more concerning. Remember, Greeley Forward is the one who talked about dark money, out of town, out of state interests with many hands, and tried to villainize them for that and for not registering, which we know one of the other committees already has done the same thing. Greeley Forward on October 3rd and October 14th got a total of $30,000 from Trollco Inc. Trollco Inc. is one of Martin Lynn's companies. Who stands to gain the most if Cascadia and Catalyst happens? It's Martin Lynn. I apologize for the typo there. Now, as I started looking through, I started noticing, oh, we have Fort Collins, Windsor. You also notice a lot of realtors, contractors, other industries that will benefit from Catalyst going through. Windsor, $500, Windsor, $500. I'm wondering why someone who's not in Greeley would be so interested in what Greeley's doing unless this was never about Greeley anyway. But as we continue to look, oh, we have Golden, but it's a development company. And Windsor, Water Valley Real Estate. We have Elizabeth Elston, which we know is Tom Donkel's wife. Windsor 200, construction 150, Windsor 250. So I added all of this up because I'm looking through and it just feels crazy, right? And I guess before I get to the total, we're going to notice some other names that feel really familiar here in just a moment. Notice this is an extensive list. Okay, we have Austin Lind, $400. We then have Tracy Lind, $100. We have Luke Lind, $500. So we see more of the Lind family contributing because, again, who stands to benefit from this? Fort Collins, Hartford Homes. Okay, then we have two, one from Florida and one from Michigan that seemed really strange. Well, this one from Florida that donated $250 worked on the Rain Dance Golf Course in Windsor in Water Valley. Okay, then as we continue down here, we have the Michigan one, which is Eagle Golf Construction. Okay, then we're going to keep coming. This is a really long list of suddenly they got a whole lot of money, almost none of it from Greeley. And the ones from Greeley, almost all of them are construction or real estate related. But once we finally get down to the bottom of this list, thanks for hanging with me. In case you missed it, adding up the out of town money, $34,000 that they have collected from people with outside interests, vast majority in Windsor, that have nothing to do with Greeley, except for the fact that they will also benefit from this. And we know that Martin Lynn's interests are primarily in Windsor. But we take all the risk. Windsor has none of the risk and they get all of the reward. Now, then I started looking at the expenses. Other than Tom Donkel paying himself and paying for a post office box, even the expenses aren't money spent in Greeley. Now, I'm not going to bore you with scrolling through all of these. You can pull it up on their website or on the City of Greeley website. Everyone has access to this. But I did want to note one last expense. If you recall, leading up to the second petition, as well as the first, but especially the second, Tom Donkel and Greeley Forward went after Greeley Deserves Better, Greeley Demands Better, because they had paid petitioners and people who were out of town and how bad that was. What do you notice they spent? Oh, I covered up the amount. It's over $40,000. What did they spend that on? They spent that on canvassing and literature distribution from a Denver company. The same thing they claimed was so outrageous that had been done by Greeley Forward. So as you look at all of this, I want to ask you all to consider, where is the dark money really coming from? Why is there so much interest from out of town that is supporting Dale Hall, Johnny Olson, Ryan Roth, and Brian Rudy? What does that tell you? And what about that has anything to do with Greeley? You look at me and the other people running, and you will see our donations are from Greeley residents. One of us isn't even taking donations. We are fighting for you all. We are the voice of Greeley, and we are trying so hard. And they are spending tens of thousands. We are now up past $100,000 to silence the voices of Greeley and to try to convince you that we want to take all your money and spend it through taxes and whatever else, as they are supporting the Catalyst Project and are the ones who've spent $100,000+ just to keep us from getting into office. Greeley, I want to know, what does that tell you?